Have you ever felt like you're just living in the wrong time zone, even in your own house? You know that feeling, right? When you're completely out of sync with the world around you. Well, today, we're going to dive deep into the science of why some of us are those bright-eyed early birds and others are total night owls. So let me ask you, which one are you? Are you the person who's energized by the sunrise, ready to take on the day? Or do you really come alive long after dark when things finally quiet down? It turns out this isn't just some quirky little habit you have. That's right, this is a fundamental part of your biology. What if I told you that whether you're a lark or an owl has less to do with your willpower and so much more to do with your internal wiring? The science is pretty clear on this one. And there's a scientific name for this. It's called your chronotype. Just think of it as your body's built-in, natural preference for when it wants to sleep and when it wants to be awake over a 24-hour cycle. It's a whole spectrum, with extreme morning larks on one side, extreme night owls on the other, and, well, most of us fall somewhere in between. So where does this chronotype even come from? Well, to figure that out, we've got to look deep inside our brains, and then even deeper, right into our DNA. So let's unpack the amazing science behind your body's internal clock. Okay, so hidden away deep in your brain, there's this tiny but super powerful command center. It's basically a master clock made of about 20,000 nerve cells. It's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it's the thing that's telling your body when to feel tired and when to be alert. And believe me, it doesn't always care what time the clock on your wall says. And this is where it gets really wild. For the longest time, scientists figured just a few genes were running the show, but then a massive study in 2019 completely changed the game. It found that our internal clocks are way more complex than we thought, identifying over 350 different gene locations that all help decide if you're a morning person or a night owl. So what that all boils down to is a pretty neat 50-50 split. About half of your chronotype is basically hardwired into you by your genes, and the other half, that gets shaped by your environment. The biggest factor by far is light. It signals our brain to wake up, while darkness tells it to release melatonin, the sleep hormone, to get us ready for bed. But here's the thing, it's not just about when you go to sleep. Your chronotype is actually woven into who you are. It can influence your personality, your habits, even the way you think. It's kind of like there are two different tribes. And the personality differences are pretty striking. Larks, on the left here, they tend to be more conscientious, dutiful. They like concrete facts. But owls, they often score way higher on openness to new experiences. They're more independent and are often drawn to more abstract symbolic ideas. Some people even think these are evolutionary leftovers. The conforming larks were great for farming, while the non-conforming owls made better night watchmen. And you can see this in their thinking styles too. Larks often lean towards logic and analysis. They're about conserving what works and tend to take fewer risks. Owls, on the other hand, are often seen as more creative, more innovative, and a little more willing to take a chance on something new. This actually led to a really provocative idea from some evolutionary psychology research. The whole theory goes that since being active at night was a new thing for humans, evolutionarily speaking, the people who were drawn to it might have actually possessed higher intelligence to deal with the new and different challenges of the dark. Now, hold on. Before all you night owls out there start feeling too smug, we've got to add some really important context. While some studies do find a small link between being an owl and certain cognitive skills, that edge is modest. And more importantly, it often gets completely wiped out by the real-world health costs of living out of sync with a 9-to-5 world. But here's a really cool example of what that difference can look like. One study found that after being awake for 10 hours straight, night owls actually performed about 6% better on a mental awareness test than the early risers did. It just goes to show that their peak performance simply hits later in their own personal day. And that idea of a later peak brings us to the biggest problem for night owls, that constant battle between their internal clock and the schedule the rest of the world runs on. This is a daily struggle, and it has some very real consequences. Scientists actually have the perfect name for this. They call it social jet lag. It's that feeling of being permanently in the wrong time zone, not because you flew anywhere, but just because society's schedule doesn't fit your biology. For a night owl who has to get up at 7 a.m. for work, every single day feels like jet lag. And look, this isn't just about feeling a bit groggy. Constantly fighting your body's natural rhythm messes with all sorts of biological processes. It's been linked to a higher risk for something called metabolic syndrome, which is this dangerous mix of conditions like obesity, high blood pressure, and insulin resistance. all things that can lead to diabetes and heart disease. The stakes here are shockingly high. A huge study from 2018 found that night owls have a 10% higher risk of dying from any cause compared to early risers, and the most likely reason, the chronic stress and all the health problems that come from that constant misalignment with their body clock.
And the toll isn't just physical, it's mental too. Research has connected those early bird genes with higher overall well-being and a lower risk of things like depression and schizophrenia. On the flip side, evening types who are fighting that social jet lag every single day tend to report lower life satisfaction overall.
Okay, so this is all really fascinating stuff, but what are you supposed to do with it? Well, the good news is you're not totally powerless. The most important first step is to figure out your own chronotype and then learn how to work with your biology instead of fighting against it. So, how do you find your true chronotype? The simplest way is what's called the free day method. Just take a weekend or vacation day where you have zero plans. Turn off all your alarms and just listen to your body. See when you naturally get tired and when you naturally wake up feeling refreshed. Or for a more scientific approach, you can look up a tool online called the Morningness-Eveningness Questionnaire, or MEQ. Now, once you know your type, good sleep hygiene becomes your absolute superpower. Rule number 1, be consistent, even on weekends. That keeps your master clock stable. Rule number 2, avoid bright light from your phone or laptop before bed. That blue light tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime. And finally, if you have to change your schedule, do it slowly. Shift your bedtime in small 15-minute chunks over a few days to let your body gently adapt. And all of this leaves us with one last big question. We've seen that there's a clear biological reason for these differences, and we've seen the real costs of ignoring them. So as we go forward, is the answer really to force everyone to fit one schedule? Or should we be trying to build a more flexible world that actually respects the natural rhythms of both larks and owls? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.